My dad just confessed that one of my kids was actually his, and that he had slept with my wife while I was away for a business trip, all right after my birthday party. So thanks for the best birthday gift ever, Dad. I had a really bad birthday with a few close friends at my own house. At the end of the party after everyone left, my dad told me that he needed to confess something that was killing him inside. I said sure. He first started off saying that he did a lot of wrong to me and my wife. He hoped that I could forgive him. I was confused as to what he was talking about. I asked what he did that he needed my forgiveness. He said to me that when I was on a business trip, he invited my wife. My wife and dad got together one day and they ended up doing the thing that led my wife carrying his baby. I just responded, huh? Is this a joke? He told me that he was being serious and not lying to me. I still couldn't believe what I was hearing. He kept going on and on saying that the baby didn't survive. And I couldn't bear to hear it, so I just said stop the BS and told him to leave my house. I physically pushed him out of my house, and I went directly to my bedroom. My wife wasn't at my party at all as she was hanging out with her girls. We were planning to go out for a date night later, but it's not going to happen. My wife doesn't know that my dad confessed to me about their affair. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't know how I'm gonna look at my wife and ask if this was true or not. After some time, I went downstairs again to check the front door, and my dad was still waiting in his car. He was just staring at his steering wheel crying. I really wanted him to go away. Wanted to say something, but couldn't because I didn't trust myself to not do something cruel. My wife still hasn't come yet, and I'm writing this. Thanks Pos Dad for giving me the best gift ever. I needed it. You are the best dad ever. Update 1. After I wrote this, I went outside and didn't spend the night in my home. The day after in the morning, I drove back to my house. I saw my dad's car and I am like, why the heck is he here? I entered my house and heard loud noises coming from the living room. My heart sank deeply into the ground. My mind went to them doing each other. I caught my dad and wife together. She was crying very loudly, and my dad was saying things like it's gonna be okay, take deep breaths, I am at fault, you didn't do anything wrong. When I saw them like that in the living room, I stared at them with the expression of WTH is going on? Y'all banging again? My wife says it's not what I think it is, and my dad adds that they weren't doing anything. They have been trying to get a hold of me to see what was up. I asked my wife why out of all people she had to call my dad instead of her girlfriends that she was hanging out on my birthday, and she said that it's because she wanted to get over this quickly and that her girls had nothing to do with this. I asked my dad why he had to come here to comfort her instead of sending someone else to check on her. He said the same and said that he knew I would come here eventually and that he wanted to sort this out with all of us being present together. I said to both of them, you guys could have called me. They sent messages, but I didn't have the balls to face them yet, so I didn't reply to them. I also said that they are painting the wrong picture and that this isn't the way to go about this. My coolness left my body. I got pissed again. I just threw my ring onto the floor, and I walked away to the door. My wife's cries intensified and told me to listen. I ignored her. My dad started following me and told me to just stay while I turned around to him to tell him to not dare follow me. I stormed off to my car. I screamed my lungs out, and my neighbor noticed this, so she approached me to see if everything was okay. I said that nothing is okay and that I need someone to talk to. We went to her house, and I told everything to her. She was so angry at them for me and was ready to burn their lives with me. She suggested that I find a therapist and a lawyer and advised me to escape them for a better life and never look back. She offered to be with me once I faced them. She hugged me and I cried. I spent the rest of the day at her house coming up with a plan on how to confront them together. Here and there I looked outside if my dad's car was still there. At some point in the day, he left. I spent yesterday night at my neighbor's place. Not even once did my dad or wife come and knock on the door. They don't care about me at all to not check on me, yet they give a dang to each other to immediately be together while disregarding the pain and the devastation that they caused me to go through for no other reason other than their selfish evil desires. I wish my dad was the one there for me lessening my pain. I wish my wife was the one holding me tightly to her heart, but they don't give a F about me. Instead, they were there for each other emotionally. They literally forgot my existence. At this point, I was 100% sure that my Pos Dad was telling the truth after seeing them together like that. Despite having a horrible family, I am grateful that I have good neighbors who are willing to go to war with me and stand up for me in my worst time, and that I once again realized how much of a blessing this is to me. I am a little more hopeful that I will be able to overcome this and that this also shall pass. Currently, I am still at my neighbor's place, and this week, we are going to confront them. I will let you guys know how that goes. Hope for the best, expect the worst. Update 2. I went to my female neighbor's house. An hour later or so, my wife kept calling me. She called me three times, but I ignored her. On her fourth call, my neighbor told me to pick the phone up, so I answered her. She stopped crying, but she was still so distressed from her voice. She asked how I was doing and really wanted me to come back, but I said I can't, so she asked if she'd talk over the phone. I said yes, and then she said that she indeed was together with my dad when I was in the business trip. She said that one day, he invited her over, so she went to his place. At the time, my wife was unemployed and looking for jobs. She was already stressed from not having any income and was lonely because of me being away from home frequently for long periods, and my dad lost his wife at the time, which made him lonely too. My grandfather had his own business and gave it to my dad in his last years. He passed away too. During that time, my dad was running the business. He thought that he'd make a deal with my wife. The deal was that my dad will give my wife a position at his business in exchange for smashing to fulfill his widow's fire. That's how everything happened. I really was speechless when she told me these things. I didn't know how to react, but I thanked her for telling her side of the story and said that I'll get back to her later. I hung up. We recorded the whole telephone call. My neighbor said that I should send a message to my dad confirming my wife's side of the story. That's what I did and asked my dad if the things that my wife were true. He said yes. I took a screenshot of our text exchange. Now that the truth has come out, I feel better, but it has raised more questions like why sleep with my dad just to get a job, why sleep with my wife instead of an escort to get rid of your loneliness. None of their reasons excuse their evil act of betrayal and infidelity towards me. Once my dad confirmed everything, my neighbor and I went to my house and told my dad to come over. We had the talk finally. They said that this happened on a weekend and they spent the whole weekend together constantly doing it without any protection, and it just on that weekend. After that, they never had an intimate connection. I asked my wife if she slept with anyone else, and she said no. Regarding our kids, I requested my dad to order 3 DNA tests for each of us to confirm any suspected paternity. My kids don't have to take a DNA test because they already did the ancestry test to learn more about our genealogy a few years ago. We didn't, but now that we are in this situation, we're going to do it too. However, my wife was annoyed that I was requesting a DNA test. She got so disappointed and told me that I don't trust her and that I insinuated that those children aren't mine. When my wife told me to not request a DNA test, my neighbor said you have to do the DNA test, and of course, he doesn't trust you anymore, and if you have nothing to hide, why are you so against the DNA test? My wife responded, don't poke your nose into this, this is between me and my husband. My neighbor then said to my wife, unlike you, I don't poke my nose into other men's way, let alone my father-in-law's. My wife couldn't say anything to that. She reluctantly agreed to take the DNA test. My dad ordered the tests in front of all of us. My dad once again told me how remorseful he was. He kept apologizing over and over again. My wife was the same. They started crying again, and I got pissed again. I told them that you guys are pos and that I never expected this from both of you. I told my dad that he could have just slept with any other woman out there but selfishly decided to sleep with my wife. I also told my wife that she's so cheap that she literally sold her body for that just to get a job in my dad's business and the expense of destroying our family. I asked her if my dad, job, and our family was worth it. She couldn't give an answer. She was guilty, and she told me that she should have been more patient in getting a job she liked, but she then confessed to me that she voluntarily left his business because of the guilt of what she did in order to get the job. I asked my dad why he confessed now and asked my wife why she kept this a secret. My dad told me that he just wanted to clear his conscience of this heavy guilt and that he was having a hard time living his life with this big of a vile secret. My wife told me that she didn't want to ruin our relationship and that she feared that she'd lose me. I said to my wife that had she told me immediately at the time, then our relationship could have been saved, but after a lifetime of our entire marriage built on lies, she brought this upon herself and that her fear is now coming true. As for my dad, I told him that he is such a pos and that he will always carry this guilt because now, he's going to live with the guilt of breaking our family for the rest of his life. I told both of them that at the end, they are the losers and that they will never get our family back. I told them that it was so clear how they were dying to be in each other's pants and finally they can have each other. My neighbor said to them that you guys deserve each other and screw yourselves to rot in hell, you guys are the worst monsters that I've ever seen. If you have read my comment, you'd know how my wife sent my dad an email saying, it's all over. I told them both loudly and clearly that it wasn't over at the time, it's all over now. At this point, my dad couldn't bear to look at me anymore, so he just left our house, and my wife had a full-blown breakdown. She was hitting herself, curling in the floor, screaming while I just looked at her with contempt and disdain. I quietly said to myself that she deserved all of this and this is only the beginning of her pain and the destruction she caused. I just looked at her. Once her breakdown was over, I just asked her to leave, but she begged to stay, which I said that she can't stay anymore and that she has to leave for a few days. After an hour of begging, she just said screw it and left. I don't know where she went, but I am happy and feel relieved. I don't care to know where she is. I don't want to think about her nor my dad anymore. In midst of this ugly confrontation, my neighbor recorded everything. After my wife left, my neighbor sent me the recording and said how proud she was of me for standing up for myself and keeping my coolness and that I deserve every happiness in the world and that I am now free to get the life I always deserved away from these pos. We hugged and I cried again. I am so happy that I have the best neighbor in the world, and I wish that my wife was like her instead of being a monster. So, the confrontation happened, and we are now waiting for our DNA test kits. We will do the test and send it off. We'll wait a couple of weeks for the results to come, and let's see what we're gonna come across. I hope a bag of a whole other lies isn't opened, but you never know. Gotta be prepared for the worst. Now, the question is, are those kids mine, my father's or someone else's?